So we're going to talk about foreshadowing, and we'll mention flashback at the end of this really quickly. Foreshadowing is a way of indicating or hinting at what is going to come later. So it kind of gives you clues as to what's going to happen next without really telling you. Why we use foreshadowing is because it adds dramatic tension and it creates suspense. So it gives us that feeling of what's going to happen next or when's it going to happen. Like we know something bad is happening, but we don't know when or where. It also helps convey information to the reader to help us understand what comes later. So it kind of drops little hints and clues that make sense to us later on and kind of draw everything together so that it all makes sense for us. Foreshadowing can be subtle or direct. So it could be subtle, like, especially in comics, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background. So storm clouds on the horizon that suggest danger is coming. Or it could also be more direct, when Romeo and Juliet talk about wanting to die rather than live without each other. Spoiler alert, they kill themselves. So when you're looking for foreshadowing, definitely look for phrases about the future. Anytime someone says like, "Oh yeah, we have Gracie's party later tonight," or "Oh, I can't. I have a really big test coming up," or something like that. So we generally see those as just kind of like conversation, but it could be something bigger. It's talking about things that are to come, and maybe actually dropping us a hint about what's going to happen later on. Look for big changes in the setting or the mood. If we travel to a new place and it's spooky, or they end up going home from school or whatever, this also shows that changes are coming. Are there objects that suggest something happy, sad, dangerous? Especially again in comics, if you're looking at the art and they're talking and they're in a room, but there's like a gun on the table, that's definitely a hint that something might happen to that later on. Also, do the characters or the narrator observe something in the background that might be a hint? Like, oh man, it's really cold in here, or looks like it might rain later on, or something like that we think at the moment is just like this little thing, like a comment, but it could hint, again, that something big is about to happen. So here's an example. Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived with her mother. Her mother asked her to take her old and lonely grandma some food one day. Don't stop along the way, go straight to your grandma's house and back, don't talk to any strangers, and watch out for the wolf in the woods. Now get along. Where do you think the foreshadowing in this example is? I hope that you said in the dialogue. So don't stop along the way. Guess what she's going to do? She's totally going to stop. Go straight to your grandma's house and back. Don't talk to strangers and watch out for the wolf in the woods. She's probably going to get diverted. She's going to end up talking to a stranger, and it's probably going to be the wolf in the woods. Here's another example. It was a dark and cold winter morning. Jim and his brother Carl waited impatiently for the school bus. Carl chewed on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I hate going to school, Jim said. You never know what might go wrong during the day. I'm going to have a pop quiz or be attacked by a school bully. Carl finished the last sandwich bite and moved on to a thermos filled with chocolate milk. It's a lot more fun in my class. Sure, Jim said, because you're in kindergarten. Everything's fun in kindergarten. The bus arrived. Both boys walked into it and separated to find their friends. As Jim sat down next to his best friend Mike, he noticed something. Hey, my lunchbox feels really light. So which sentence was our example of foreshadowing? The correct answer is C. You never know what might go wrong during the day. This is that example of talking about the future, talking about things that might happen later on. It gives us that hint that one of those things might happen later on. Some of you might say, A, my lunchbox feels really light. While this could be foreshadowing, a big thing is that nothing really came of it. So it happened before. We might have hinted, like, while Carl was eating all this stuff, that was going to lead up to that. So that would be more of the event and not the thing that was being foreshadowed. Really quickly, let's mention flashback. So this is a way of looking back to re-experience past events, and it often happens further into a story. And the difference is it's not just someone talking about their past, like, oh man, I really hated third grade. It's them really going back and experiencing it and visualizing it. So that's kind of a big difference than just kind of mentioning, oh yeah, yesterday really sucked. And it needs to happen further into a story. So flashbacks will happen further into a story, but foreshadowing will happen earlier in a story because you have to have time for the event to happen. That's flashback and foreshadowing.